on the bathroom floor, not being able to move. I remember this excruciating pain in my back. And I remember my husband calling the ambulance, and the ambulance getting me and taking me down 3 flights of stairs. And I remember a terrible, terrible week in the hospital. I remember 6 long months of physiotherapy after that. And all of that, why? All of that because I had worked too much. Obviously, I didn't have time for breaks. Obviously, I did not have time for sports. 2 years before, I had just founded my company, which was 10 months after giving birth to my daughter. It was a complete roller coaster, and I told myself, like many others, work needs to be priority now. I have too many things to do. I cannot possibly think about myself at this point. Many leaders today, and I'm sure many of you, are completely overwhelmed by the amount of decisions you need to take every day, by the amount of information flowing into your inboxes and into many other channels, as we've heard, every day. And most leaders, and I think a lot of you are HR professionals too, most leaders will tell you, I don't have time to think about myself. I need to get this done first. Probably many of you even thought, I don't have time to come here today, because honestly, this is a luxury. Probably most of you are checking emails in the breaks, and probably most of you, or many of you, are overwhelmed regularly. I'm completely convinced that in order to impact others through leadership, and we've heard a lot of this today, you need to start within. You need to start with yourself. And I want to take you on a little bit of a journey on why it is so important to start with yourself, and why this is the only credible way to create huge organizational impact for your organizations. Help. If anyone could help me with the presentation for a second. Thank you. So the first reason why I think it is so important that leaders need to start with themselves is because it's simple necessity. If you don't start with yourself, you're simply, thank you, not going to be able to help anyone else. It's like in the airplane, you know, in case of emergency, gas mask on yourself first. And only when you've made sure that you help yourself, you can help anyone else. It doesn't work the other way around. The second reason, we just help ourselves like this. The second reason is credibility. You need to walk the talk. If you don't, you're not going to be credible. You can also see it the other way around. You can also do it the other way around. If you as a leader don't start with yourself, it's simply not going to lead to very good results, because your every step is being watched. Probably you have noticed sometimes people respond to every single thing you do. When you send an email, if it comes at midnight, if it comes in the weekend, am I supposed to respond? What does she wear? What does that mean? When does she do her shopping? How does she look at her email during meetings? Does that mean I can also look at email during my meetings? No matter what you do, it's gonna mean you are credible or you're not credible. The third is because it's your responsibility. As a leader, you are supposed to work at your full potential. Full potential means that you have to do what's necessary to bring the creativity to the workplace, to bring your full focus to the workplace so that you can be the best possible resource and do your job as a leader. It is part of your job to take care of yourself. That also means that taking care of yourself and investing in yourself needs to be part of your calendar. We all know things that aren't in the calendar are not going to happen. It means that you need to put the time that you want to take a break in, or the time that you're going to invest in yourself, the time for coaching, yes, and also the time for the fitness center into the calendar. And my calendar appointments at the fitness center are marked in a very special color so that everyone knows they're not to be taken out. And they take the same priority as client meetings. It doesn't work any other way. It's your responsibility. Oh, fine, so fine. One of the important competencies of a leader is flexibility. And the fourth reason is leverage. No matter what you do as a leader, it has a huge multiplier effect because a lot of people are watching. That means it's a lot of responsibility, but it's also a huge opportunity because you have this thing that you can do, and you know if you do it right, a lot of people will follow. It doesn't even matter how big your organization or your team is. As we all know, leaders are not hierarchical, leaders through authority. Leaders are people who inspire others through actions. So it doesn't matter what type of leader you are. If you're simply an inspiring person who does things that others look up to, you have leverage. And times like these, where everything can be multiplied even more through digitization, brings even more leverage. So now those are reasons for why leaders need to invest in themselves. And I think a lot of you are going to be faced with leaders in your organizations, and maybe this also applies to you yourselves, who say, yeah, all of this is clear, I just don't have time. And maybe these arguments help to make a case for leadership development. But then the question is, okay, let's say we need to invest in ourselves. Leaders need to invest in themselves before they start doing anything else. So what are the things they need to invest in? And today we've heard so many things already. We've heard about the leader needs to be a facilitator. The leader needs to work on his or her productivity. There are so many things and so many competencies that you need to work on. If you Google leadership development, it's completely overwhelming what you get. There are lists of traits and characteristics that a leader needs to have. But those are all generalizations. And as we've also heard today, it all depends on you, because the context is individual. Yes, it will depend on the organization, but it also depends on you as a person. So what are the things that you need to develop? It's much more than certain traits and characteristics. And as Dominic just said before, it starts with calling and values. What is your purpose? Your individual calling as a leader. In my industry, if you can call this industry, the startup industry, at least for the past couple of years, the ultimate definition of success is the multi-million-dollar exit, which is a definition of success that is a little bit problematic because it's similar to a lottery win. It just doesn't happen to a lot of people. My definition of success in my calling is much more sustainable and much more human-centric. We have built a company where more than 60% work part-time, where more than 60% are female, where more than 50% of leaders are female, where we have absolute trust-based working time and working places. It doesn't matter to me where anyone is, what anyone does, as long as the things are done. And that means we've created a culture that is completely untraditional in the way it goes about things. What my calling is that I create an environment where people can flourish and do the things that give them their personal calling and that brings them closer to their purpose, and that helps other organizations and individuals to come closer to their personal calling. I think everyone needs to define that for themselves, because otherwise you will always be on the search for this something that is missing. What is equally important, and what follows immediately after, is my role as a leader and my style as a leader. Who do I want to be as a leader? A lot of leaders go through their days basically just working, being steered by their calendars, completely reactive to external demands. But have you ever thought about what are the top 2 or 3 things that I'm here for in my role? What are the things that you can do that create the biggest impact in your organization? Is my role empowering, or is it visioning, or is it creating organizational structures? Is it maybe finding the right collaboration partners? Is it strategy? Is it finance? Because maybe if my company is in a liquidity situation, that might be my most important role. What are the things that you as a person, as a leader, need to focus on? And are you really living up to those 2 or 3 most important priorities every day, every week? No, most of us are being steered by the things that other people want from us. And they rush from meeting to meeting, and they don't even have time to think about their role and their style and the type of leader they want to be. The next thing, and I think we've touched a little bit on this with Marilena's talk about productivity, but I think it goes even more beyond that. It's about energy. Your personal energy as a leader is basically defined by 3 areas. The one is your body, the second is your mind, and the third is your emotion. The body seems pretty simple. In reality, it's not. It's about sleeping right, eating right, taking breaks, and exercising. A lot of us don't do some of those. It's easy to say, but the question is, how do you create a practice where you actually take care of your body? Because your body is one of your most important instruments. And if you don't take care of your body as a leader, you won't be fit to lead. And it will work for a while, but it won't be sustainable. The second is the mind. The mind is arguably the most important instrument of any leader, maybe of anyone in the knowledge society. And the mind can do a lot of things, but the most important thing that we have unlearned to do is focus. We need to be able to focus. That means leaving out distractions, and here we've heard about, turn off your notifications, and this is something that is a great possibility for focusing, but again, we need to have completely different day structures and calendar structures in order to take the time off. And some people will say, that's not possible. I have clients. Yes, you have clients, but the clients won't be inspired by you if you can't focus and come up with completely creative solutions. So your mind is your second most important instrument in order to maintain the highest possible level of energy. And the second, in order to maintain this energy, a third one is your emotion. It sounds a little bit off and not very businessy, but if you have the perfect, healthy body and the mind that just is razor sharp, it won't help if you have the divorce at home or this huge conflict at work that doesn't let you think about anything else, because emotionally, you're not there. And that means you need strategies to deal with your emotions and to have a safe environment where your emotional stability can be granted. And that is one of the most important pillars of what to work on as a leader. And the last one, and I think this is the one that everyone seems to focus on, but I think it's just the fourth one after your calling, after your role, and after your energy, is the competencies. Yes, you need certain competencies as a leader, and there are lots of frameworks out there. The 10 competencies a leader needs, the Agile Leadership Competency Framework. You can all Google it, but the truth is completely dependent on your organizational context. It depends on you and what you already bring to the table. It depends on the industry. It depends on your peers, because no leader works alone. Normally, competencies need to be shared in a leadership team, and it depends on the strategy and vision of the company. Where do you want to go? And depending on that, you need to work on a certain set of competencies that will make you stronger. The only point I want to make on competencies is that I think what we're trying a little bit to do with all the leadership seminars out there is that we're trying to become even more efficient and the even better machine, while in truth, we should try to become even more human and do the things that are best complementary to technology. As leaders, we need to become better humans, better at empathy, better at collaboration, instead of becoming even more efficient. So now we've talked about the why. Why do leaders need to start with themselves? And about the what. What are the pillars of leadership development? So the question is now, what are the principles? What are the hows on how to go about developing these things? Well, the first one is to uncover blind spots. This is one of the most difficult things to do because you can't do it yourself. Obviously, a blind spot is something you don't see because it's in an area that you haven't thought about. It's because it's something about yourself that you don't really realize, and you need someone else to help you uncover blind spots. The second is that you need to confront these blind spots with radical honesty in a way where it normally hurts. And a lot of us are not very satisfied and happy with doing that. It's necessary to get to real development. And the third is to ensure accountability. Who is going to check whether you stuck to what you said you would do? How are you going to notice that you really did a change in your leadership style, in your leadership role, in the way you structure your day? Do you have a peer? Did you tell anyone? It's a little bit like Weight Watchers. It helps when you have to get on the scales. So accountability is the third thing. And I want to tell you a quick story about one of the most impressive experiments I've heard about lately. Our sister company, the Haufe Academy, has done something pretty cool. It's an experiment over 2 years where they basically said, okay, we have these hundreds of seminars with coaching, with training, we have mentoring, we have cool e-learnings, we have everything there is to offer in the world of learning and development. What if we find 15 random people who have nothing in common, leaders, non-leaders, Germans, non-Germans, from all over the world, older people, younger people. What if we say to them, you get anything you want within leadership development, learning and development, on all these kind of things for free for 2 years. You can do whatever you want, any seminar, any training, just choose by yourself and we'll make it available. And let's look what happens. And a lot of very interesting things happen, and a movie is being made out of this right now, and I'm not going to go into detail, but one of the most important outcomes, really one of the top outcomes, was a coach that helps you uncover your blind spots, confront you with radical honesty, and then help you to ensure accountability was one of the most important things, because just choosing one thing here and there, if you don't even know what it should be, is really difficult. So you need some type of external framework, like a 360-degree feedback, or an external person, a mentor, a coach, a peer, someone that can help you to deal with those things. And another how is missing, and that is to make space. It is simply not credible to think that you can do all this in the evening when you get home. I think a lot of us have daily lives where we have meetings over meetings, and then we come home, maybe we have some family time in between, and then we do our emails. It won't work to develop to a different stage of being a leader if you do it in between in your half-hour break. You need to make space, and making space means taking it seriously and carving out the time. I recently had this thing in my head where sometimes you have a revelation where a switch is being turned. That happened to me when I discussed working time with someone. And the someone said, you know, I'm not working full-time, I'm working 35 hours per week, and then we discussed about what that even means, like full-time and 35 hours and the kind of the same. And then this person said, well, it's not really the same, because if I only work 35 hours, I feel like I can stick to the 35 hours, but if I work full-time, I feel like I need to do 50 hours. So this entire thing about counting hours was the main part of this discussion, and I thought, isn't it completely random? Isn't it completely random what we set as full-time? Isn't it completely random anyway, because it doesn't matter, it's always too little? No matter how much we work, if it's 30, 40, 50, 60 hours, it will never be enough. So if you know that it's never going to be enough, and by the way, if we also know that the world will continue turning if we have an accident tomorrow and land in the hospital for 4 weeks, surprisingly, life goes on. So if we take those two truths, why don't we just carve out the necessary time every week and invest in ourselves? Because it will make us so much more powerful with everything else we do. And the only way you can empower others and enable others is to enable yourself first. So a lot of skeptics say, yeah, but all those soft things, leadership development, but what about the bottom line? What's it going to bring for the organizational results? Well, there's plenty of studies out there, and one of the key results is retention of your talents. We know talents and people join brands and companies, but they leave bad leaders. In nearly all cases, people leave companies because they just couldn't work with this person anymore, because they weren't developed, because they weren't taken seriously, because their leader didn't make space for them. Your retention costs are going to go down enormously if your leadership level is at its best. The second is employee engagement. Employee engagement is one of the key indicators of organizational performance. Employee engagement mainly relies upon great leadership. If you don't have good leaders, your employee engagement is not going to be at the level it should be. The third, and I think you can't read it, are financial results. In the end, only if you invest in yourselves, you will create a level of excellence that will mean everyone else invests in themselves and everyone else takes this company, their development, and the organization seriously. And in the end, this is going to lead to a completely different level of financial results. I want to summarize all this. You need to start with the reasons for why leaders need to invest in themselves. And that's because it's simple necessity. It's because otherwise you're not credible. It's because it's your responsibility. And it's because you have this huge leverage as a leader. The question of what are the pillars, can be answered with, first, your calling and your values. What's the point of what you're doing? Why are you here in the first place? Your role and your style. What are your priorities? What do you really need to focus on? The third is your energy, body, mind, and emotion. And the fourth is competencies. Then the question is, what are the principles in order to work on that? And that's basically to uncover blind spot, to confront these blind spots with radical honesty, and to ensure accountability. And last but not least, to make space in order for leadership development to be able to happen. And that all leads to a completely different level of organizational performance. You will retain the best. You will engage your employees. It will be the basis for excellence, and it will lead to different level of organizational and financial performance. A couple of weeks ago, an employee came to me and said, Tina, can we talk? It's rather urgent. And I said, sure, let's just go into the meeting room. And we went there, and he sat down, and he looked completely tired. And he said to me, I am so sorry. I know. I just started here recently. And I feel like such a failure for saying this, but I feel completely overworked from my last job. Probably between those two jobs, I should have taken a break. I'm on the brink of falling over some cliff I don't want to fall over. Is there any possibility I can reduce my working time from 40 to 30 hours? I know you're gonna hate me. This is terrible because you've planned with my resources, but is there anything that I can do to make this possible? And I thought back about me lying on the bathroom floor with my back hurting and being carried into the hospital, and my promise I made to myself that this would never happen again, not to me or anyone in my company. And it hasn't, and it most certainly won't. Thank you.